Hello and welcome to another episode of For Zion's Sake, the CUFI UK podcast. My name is Alex and I'm joined here by Alastair.
Hello.
And this week we're going to be looking at how Israel prevented a major terror attack by Hezbollah when they carried out preemptive strikes on the group in Lebanon.
Plus, we discuss how the rescue of an Israeli Arab by the IDF who was held hostage in Gaza really shows Israel's true heart.
Yep, we're also going to be reading some of your comments from the last episode. So if you have any thoughts on the topics that we're discussing today, please do leave comments down below.
So, Alex, we had the good news on Tuesday that one of the Israeli hostages has been rescued.
Yep.
Not released, rescued
right.
by the IDF. In an operation in Gaza. Farhan Alkadi, he was held captive for 326 days.
Yep.
And thankfully was rescued. The first hostage to be rescued, in fact, from a tunnel, from an underground tunnel.
Right. Okay.
It appears as though that he was went from one place to another, but they discovered him in the tunnel and is now safely home in Israel.
Yeah.
He was working as a guard at a packing factory in Kibbutz Magan when he was abducted by Hamas terrorists on the 7th of October. And Israel, of course, is celebrating with him and his family.
Yeah.
And it was wonderful to see the scenes. He was from the Bedouin community. He was an Israeli Muslim,
Yeah.
an Israeli Arab. And, you know, I think one of the comments, which actually it was a comment which was made by the former mayor of the community that he lives in, he said that he didn't receive any special kind of treatment from the Hamas terrorists because he was a Muslim. In fact, they treated him as an Israeli in every respect.
Yeah.
And I think that is quite, pertinent to point out that
Yeah.
his captors treated him as an Israeli in every respect, and Israel regards him as an Israeli in every respect because he is an Israeli.
That's right, yeah. And you were saying, like, he worked as a security guard on a kibbutz. Like, the kibbutz are seen as, like, Jewish communities, and yet he was there protecting it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think it definitely shows, I mean, it smashes the apartheid lie. I think some of the images we've seen of Jewish doctors who were treating him after he was released, alongside his Muslim family as well. And another thing was, there's a quote from him when he was after he was rescued. He said, "Suddenly I heard someone outside the door speaking in Hebrew. I didn't believe it. Thank you so much. This is thanks to our army. They do sacred work. They risk their lives." So literally he's saying the IDF, our army, does sacred work. And he is, if you're looking at this from an anti-Israel perspective, they would see him as a Palestinian living in Israel, and that the IDF is the enemy of the Palestinians. Well, he is an Israeli Arab who says that the IDF does sacred work. So it completely dispels this, the lie of apartheid.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Completely dispels it. It crushes that narrative that, Israel treats Arabs any different than it treats its own Jewish population.
Exactly.
And the 7th of October, of course, it was anti-Semitic in its motive. But as we've seen here, it obviously affected all Israelis.
Yep.
All Israelis are suffering. And all Israelis will celebrate together when there is an outcome like this.
Yep.
It's really important. I mean, we don't want to, over-politicize every humanitarian achievement. But actually, when we look at what the opponents of Israel, the enemies of Israel are doing, they politicize absolutely everything.
Yeah, exactly.
All right?
Yeah.
So, the gloves are off. We need to tackle the lies with the truth.
Yeah, exactly.
And the truth is, right, that this was an Israeli Arab Muslim who regarded himself as Israeli because he is Israeli.
Yep.
He's rescued by by an Israeli army which has Arabs and Jews, Christians and Muslims within it.
Yep.
And these are just facts that the anti-Israel brigade do not like. You know, looking at Twitter yesterday, there was a great deal of confusion about what position the anti-Israel brigade should take leveled against Israel, because they just cannot accept the facts.
Yeah.
And this is an incident which has been highlighted. We're very, very happy for this family that they have been reunited.
Yeah.
But everyday life in Israel, outside of the conflict, is actually very different to what the media tries to present, politicians try and present, the pro-Palestinian movement tries and presents.
Yeah.
You know, Jews and Arabs do live side by side in Israel with an equal status.
Yep.
No two-tier.
Yeah.
Equal status.
Yeah.
And so, yes, that's a wonderful thing. We must continue to pray for the release or the rescue of all hostages. 104 of the 251 hostages remain captive by Hamas in Gaza, and that 104 includes the bodies of 34 confirmed dead by the IDF.
Yeah.
So let us continue to pray for them.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, you know, obviously it's been going on for 10 months now, coming up to 11 months.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's still, I mean, all of us, whenever we see this sort of rescue, it's a great joy. But at the same time, there is just that feeling of there's still 104 of them left to bring home, even if it is bringing home bodies. Like, the families need closure.
Yes.
They need to, you know, and let's put it this way, there's still, you know, it's not just 104 people in Gaza, it's thousands of people in Israel who are affected by that, who are connected to those people, who are longing for their people to come home. And every day that Hamas is doing this, you know, it's a trauma for the people of Israel. It's a torture for them. And I think it's one of those things where, you know, Hamas is cursing Israel by what it's doing. And I think as we move to different subjects, I think it shows actually how the enemy is constantly trying to traumatize Israel and the public through the different methods that they're terrorizing Israel, because they are a terrorist entity, a terrorist organization.
But absolutely. And I mean, Farhan himself, in one of the testimonies he has given, of course, it's early days. It was only Tuesday that he was rescued.
Yeah.
Clearly, he lost a great deal of weight. He ate, he said, mostly bread whilst he was held captive for the 10.5 months.
Right.
And one of the other hostages, who's currently unnamed, and this is obviously being verified by Israel at the time, but apparently he told one media source that one of the hostages who was beside him died at his side.
Wow.
And he was in a tunnel, the first hostage to be actually rescued in a tunnel. And I think we can perhaps gain some hope that this might lead also on to the release of other, or rescue of other hostages.
Yeah.
Because this was in Rafah. And do you remember several months ago, the world was piling pressure on Israel? Do not enter Rafah.
Yeah.
Do not enter Rafah. And in fact, it was, the Biden administration was leading the charge. And you must not go into Rafah.
Yeah.
This will be the end. This would be tragic. Kamala Harris, have you heard of her?
Yep.
Yeah. Kamala Harris she actually said that she has looked at the maps.
Right.
And there's no place for them to go, the Palestinians. They must not enter Rafah.
Yeah.
Israel entered Rafah, right? And since then, there have now been 2 hostages that have been rescued alive in Rafah. Yeah. That would not have happened had they not entered. There hasn't been the catastrophe that the world was warning there would be. Israel has actually facilitated the evacuation of 1 million Palestinians. They have paused fighting in order for ordinary Palestinian civilians to evacuate out of harm's way. despite Hamas's efforts to use civilians as human shields.
Yeah.
So there's now 2 hostages, including Farhan. And last week, Israel announced that Hamas's Rafah brigade is defeated, and they've destroyed 150 tunnels from the Egypt-Gaza border, among many successful operations in Rafah.
Yeah.
So Israel is succeeding in its operation in Rafah and in Gaza.
Yeah.
And yet the world, just several months ago, we sat here discussing about how every politician, including our own government, were trying to push back and almost issue ultimatums against Israel for not doing it.
Yeah.
Look what happens. 150 tunnels discovered. A brigade in Gaza, Hamas brigade, which is all but defeated in Rafah. So, yeah.
Yeah, I know. That's the thing. I mean, Israel's been told time and time again, you cannot defeat Hamas. And it's like, even if it's an impossible task, Israel's trying to defeat Hamas. And actually, they appear to be succeeding in what they're trying to do. And it's interesting bringing up the Egyptian tunnels, 150 tunnels. I mean, that is not a very big area that is being covered there. And I remember a few years ago, Egypt declaring that they had closed all the tunnels because basically Israel had provided some technology to help them detect tunnels. Well, it seems now that maybe some people within the Egyptian government, military, whatever, maybe weren't finding all the tunnels that, weren't destroying all the tunnels that they found, because clearly 150 tunnels there is a lot of tunnels. And the IDF has actually released video footage and pictures of some of them. I mean, one of them, you could fit trucks in. You could fit a lorry going into it. I mean, these are not small things there.
Yeah.
Clearly, this is where Iran has been funneling in weaponry and materials for their terrorist activities. It's probably how they've been smuggling people in and out. It may even be how some of Hamas's leaders, there is thought that some of Hamas's leaders and the hostages may have even been removed from Gaza. That's not confirmed yet. That's a speculation on the IDS part, where they're not sure if, because obviously it took Israel time to get into Rafah. It took Israel time to get the corridor there between Egypt and Gaza. So obviously there was time to move people and things in and out of Gaza. So, but it just shows, actually, I mean, Egypt is a peace partner with Israel. It has an agreement with Israel, and yet they seem to have been a bit more lax when it came to these tunnels. The other thing is, as well, when it comes to the people side of things, Egypt on the surface has actually bolstered its defenses and bolstered its border with Gaza to ensure that no Palestinians get out of Gaza. So where Israel just had a fence around their area, basically, it was a state-of-the-art fence. It had detectors on it, cameras, all the rest of it. Egypt has, barbed wire fencing, walls with barbed wire on, guard towers, everything. Like, they literally are trying to stop any Palestinians coming into their territory in any way, shape, or form. Probably because, they know...
I don't think they want Hamas.
Well, that's what I mean. Yeah, it's more Hamas rather than the Palestinians. Yeah. But unfortunately...
Well, you're right, though.
Yeah.
They don't want the Palestinians because, for the same reasons, you could say that Israel does not want illegal... people coming across illegally because of the Hamas factor. Yeah,
the Hamas factor. And that's unfortunately what happened even with...
And other reasons.
Yeah, and other reasons. And unfortunately, that was the thing with... Before October the 7th, Israel was actually granting working visas to Palestinians in Gaza to enter into Israel and work. Unfortunately, many of those... I don't know the numbers exactly. We don't know percentages. But there were many of those who were working in Israel who were actually scouting on behalf of Hamas. And they were working out entry points into the kibbutz and all these, mapping out the area and things like that, ready for an attack. And so, there is that factor there. And unfortunately, Hamas has destroyed the prospect, really, of Israel granting entry visas and work permits to Palestinians. And a lot of those Palestinians were benefiting hugely because obviously there's a lot of peaceful Palestinians who just want to provide for their families and work hard and that sort of thing. And unfortunately, that door is now closed because Israel has to be so careful with who they now allow into Israel from Gaza because they don't know who is Hamas and who isn't Hamas because Hamas has embedded itself so well, even to the point where it's integrated itself into UN agencies like UNRWA.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, talking about the border, shall we just mention about the polio?
Yeah, I think that's a good thing. Yeah.
Because polio, there's been a great deal of concern that the polio disease could take root in Gaza.
Yeah.
Apparently there's been some testing of the water, and there's concern. I think there's been one case of polio in an infant. Bearing in mind that Gaza has gone 25 years without one recorded case of polio.
Right.
Okay. In the UK, we've not had a case of polio since the mid-90s. So when you consider about the accusations against Israel of the suffering in Gaza, okay, and the conditions in Gaza, it's gone 25 years without a case of polio.
Yeah.
And there is one recorded case, apparently. So there's a concern that this will become an epidemic among some of the health organizations. Well, now Israel has facilitated the transfer of enough vaccines for 1.25 million people.
Yeah. Just in a week, I think it was.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, there's various reports online about, Israel not doing enough for getting the vaccines, etc. Well, no, Israel has facilitated pallets of the vaccine into Gaza. It has paused operations in order to allow. So ignore what reporters in The Guardian and so forth are saying, Israel's not doing enough. No, Israel has done everything that it has been called upon. And has provided enough vaccines. Bearing in mind that there is not currently an epidemic of polio in Gaza. That's one thing. There's one case. Yes, vaccines are important for polio. But look, this is something that again just illustrates the amount of misinformation that is taking place. And the effort that Israel is doing in order to try and provide as much humanitarian assistance as it can. One of the other things, when I was looking at this story, I couldn't believe that in the posts about this story, 1.25 million people being served with or having available vaccines. I don't think they've started rolling it out yet. But on the post, it was saying that, this is Israel's plan to poison the Palestinians.
I know.
Do not trust the vaccines.
I know.
Etc., etc. But if you look at the pallets, they have on the labels UNICEF. Okay. So these are UNICEF provided vaccines, which Israel has facilitated. Okay. So again, Israel cannot do any right.
And it's crazy, really. I mean, they're being accused of trying to commit genocide in Gaza, and yet, like you said, one case of polio, and they paused their military operations to provide vaccines for Gaza. And so it goes against everything that the anti-Semites and the anti-Israel people are saying. And it points to the fact that Israel loves life. Israel is doing everything it can to protect civilian life in Gaza. They're doing more for their enemies than I think any other nation has ever done. They're doing more for the people of Gaza than the Palestinian Authority or Hamas have ever done. Even though Israel is being accused of genocide and all these war crimes, etc., Israel is proving itself time and time again to actually, trying to do the right thing for them. And I think, with the polio vaccine, it is one of those things where polio has almost been eradicated around the world, actually, because of polio being available. And, I'm not sure why. I'm assuming it's because right now, as the war has been going on, there hasn't been a proper vaccination sort of mission taking place. Obviously there's been a breakdown of sort of facilities and things like that.
I must clarify, because suddenly all the
all the information gets into your head. Yeah.
Information coming out. Okay. It's not had a case of 25 years. I think I might have said on the recording just that they detected it in the water. They actually detected it in sewage water.
Right.
That's important clarification, because drinking water and sewage water
are two
separate things. So they did it in the sewage water. And also I said that we've not had a case here in the 90s, since the mid-90s, but we have actually in the UK detected polio in sewage water as recent as I think last year.
Oh, okay. So
it is something which is ongoing monitored. But anyway, I just thought I'd clarify that for anyone who might be a polio expert listening.
Yeah, they might know more. Yeah, I'll just say one little factoid, totally off subject, but the polio vaccine, when it was invented, the guy who invented polio, he actually was told by a company to patent the vaccine, because they basically said, you will make so much money from this because you've cured polio. And he actually said something along the lines of, everybody deserves the right to access to the sun, and you can't patent the sun. And everyone deserves good health just like they deserve the sun. So he didn't patent it, which means that any pharmaceutical company can actually make polio vaccines for free. And that is how polio got defeated around the world, basically, because he gave it free to the world, even though he discovered it. He never made money off it.
Wow.
So just a little factoid. There's a side note there.
Yeah,
but I think that's the same sort of attitude Israel's got here.
Absolutely.
Where it's trying to,
the charitable heart motive.
Yeah.
Israel will continue to be, sadly, slandered by its enemies. But Israel continues to press forward to do the right thing, because it is the right thing.
Yeah.
And because Israel values human life.
Yeah.
Hamas has been in control since, just after 2005, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Now, Hamas does not have any regard of the lives of Palestinian civilians.
Yeah.
Israel cares more for the Palestinians than Hamas does. Yeah. And so, yes, thank the Lord that Israel does exist.
Yeah.
Because, Israel is showing its heart.
Yeah,
again.
Definitely.
And we must confront these attitudes, actually, which are continuing to portray the consequences of this war and blaming Israel.
Yeah.
When we must remember that it was Hamas that started this war.
Yeah.
It should not come as to a surprise that there are humanitarian issues like this that could become a bigger issue. Such as the polio. Why? Because it is war. Okay? This is messy.
Yeah.
But Hamas is to blame, not Israel.
Yep.
Israel is doing everything it can to protect and preserve the life of Israelis and Palestinians.
Yeah. But the reverse is true of Hamas.
Yeah.
Hamas is doing the opposite to what Israel's doing. Hamas is trying to obviously destroy Israel, but they're doing everything in their power to damage Palestinians, to put Palestinian civilians in harm's way, to literally sacrifice, as the leaders have said, to sacrifice their own children, that the blood will spur on, the fighters of Hamas to fight harder, and all this nonsense they say, demonic stuff they say.
Yeah, it is nonsense. And even like Sinwar, the leader of Hamas, or the new leader of Hamas, who just a few weeks ago was saying that he wished for martyrdom.
Yes, yeah.
And yet, apparently, in the negotiation, the talks for a ceasefire, he apparently asked Israel if they could guarantee his safety and security, basically preserve his life, in some sort of hostage deal ceasefire.
Yeah.
Right? So completely contradicting his previous comments just the other week, where he said he wants to become a martyr, who desires to be a martyr. What did that do? Well, it probably just fueled a whole load of young Palestinian men to sacrifice their lives in martyrdom, where he himself, perhaps down in his tunnel, fearing for his life, wanting Israel to come and save him and protect him.
Yeah, he's literally
cowardice.
I know, he's literally begging for Israel not to kill him, even after the war. Please don't kill me, because I'm so much of a coward. And yet, like you said, he is spurring on people to give their lives, because the thing is with the Hamas ideology, it's a radical Islamist ideology, very similar to ISIS. Like there was an ISIS attack recently where they said that they did it for Palestine.
Do you mean the one in Germany?
The
with
one,
3
yep.
people that were stabbed in Germany just last week.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is the ideology there.
They said that was because of the as a revenge because of the quote murders in Palestine quote.
Yeah, exactly. So ISIS is on the side of the Palestinians, the same as Hamas. Hamas and ISIS have very similar ideologies, but there are a lot of these people who are brainwashed, and this is why we think it's demonic. We think radical Islam is demonic because Satan is brainwashing people into believing that they can literally murder Jews, murder infidels, blow themselves up, and that Allah will reward them and send them to paradise. And yet you see it when you've got these Hamas leaders like Yahya Sinwar, who clearly doesn't believe exactly what he's saying, but he's willing to manipulate his minions to do what, to do his bidding. And the same as well as for Ismail Haniyeh, who was assassinated by Israel. He was a billionaire, billionaire with a B, multiple billionaire. There are multiple billionaires within Hamas, because a lot of the foreign aid money that's going to help the Palestinians ends up in the hands of the Palestinian leaders. They are not doing it to help the Palestinians. They're doing it to profit themselves. And they want to live a long time as possible so they can reap the benefits of, of the life here with having £1 billion. But another thing I just want to point out, Yahya Sinwar, you mentioned him.
Yeah.
And one thing, by the way, so people can understand, the reason why it's important that he's actually saying that, he is now the leader of Hamas politically and militarily. When Ismail Haniyeh was killed, Yahya Sinwar took both responsibilities. So he is the single person who says yes or no to a hostage deal.
Yes.
And the hostages, the war in Gaza would be over immediately if Hamas released all the hostages and stopped the war.
Yes.
It is on Hamas to end the war, not Israel.
Absolutely.
And Yahya Sinwar now has this bulletproof plan of saving his life, because he can say, well, I'm not going to agree to anything unless you promise to save me, the coward that he is. Yahya Sinwar was actually saved by Israel in the past. So he actually had surgery in Israel, a few years ago before he was actually became the terror leader, and they saved his life, giving him an operation. And it was actually, they removed a brain tumor from him while he was a prisoner in Israel at the time, because obviously he was a terrorist. And he was actually released from prison in a prisoner exchange later on. But anyway, Israel saved his life. An Israeli doctor performed brain surgery on him, took the tumor out of him, saved his life. That doctor now, his nephew is being held in Gaza by Hamas.
Wow.
Terrorists.
Wow.
So just look at that. The two sides there, where you've got Israel, they love life, they're looking to save lives, and you've got, on the other hand, Hamas. This leader is responsible for the largest attack, the largest killing of Jews since the Holocaust. He's only alive today because an Israeli saved him.
Yes.
And in return for that, as thanks for that, he's murdering Jews, holding them hostage, using Jews as human shields. One of them could even be the nephew of the surgeon who saved his life.
Yes.
What a coward. What an evil, evil man.
And again, a demonstration of the heart of the Jewish people to, to even help their enemies.
I know. That's the thing.
Incredible. And to value life. And that is actually the story of the Jewish people, the nation of Israel, a light to the nations. Yeah,
and one other factoid, by the way, the polio vaccine we were talking about earlier, it was invented by a Jewish man.
Wow.
So it's,
I love your factoids.
Factoids, there you go.
And wonderful. And in fact, there you go. Another example. Polio, invented by a Jewish man.
Yeah.
It's so many different things.
Yeah.
And so, we love Israel.
Yep.
And we're thankful to Israel for its contribution to the world. A stark difference, almost like the contrast between light and darkness, so evidenced when we look at Israel and we consider the attitudes of Israel's enemies. But we want to be on the side of life We want to be on the side of the light
Yep.
and of goodness. And so, yeah, that's why we stand with Israel.
Yep.
We are pleased to announce that the 2024 to 2025 calendar from Christians United for Israel UK is now available to purchase. The title for this year's calendar is The Beauty of Zion. Israel is beautiful, and the Bible paints vivid images in our minds through the emotive words used to describe this land of promise. We hope you can experience the beauty of Zion as you make use of the calendar throughout the year. The calendar includes 16 stunning images of Israel with selected inspirational scriptures to help focus your prayers for God's chosen people and their land. The calendar also includes UK Christian and Jewish holidays for the 16 months and includes weekly Torah portions. Plus, we also offer a special bundle discount for adding a mug and greeting cards to the calendar. By purchasing a calendar or one of our gift bundles, you are supporting the work of CUFI in standing for Israel in the UK. Go to store.cufi.org.uk. So, Alex, the other big news over the weekend was this major attack by Hezbollah, which was thwarted by the IDF. So Israel had, discovered with just a few hours to spare that Hezbollah were planning, I think it was 3 hours notice, that they were planning a major scale attack on northern and central Israel.
Yep.
And so preemptively, Israel struck Hezbollah targets, struck their launch pads.
Yep.
I think they used around 70 IDF aircraft, Israel Air Force, and they really pummeled Hezbollah's targets to prevent what would have been a massive attack against Israel.
Yeah.
I mean, despite that, 230 rockets Hezbollah did manage to fire and 20 drones. But, I mean, it was an incredible saving, really, in defense of Israel by the IDF.
Yeah, definitely. I think it was sort of akin to what happened during the 6-Day War when Israel did a preemptive strike on Egypt, I think it was, or certain countries actually in different areas where they knew that the armies were amassing and coming towards them. That's basically what happened over the weekend where, as you said, the IDF saw what was going to happen, they preempted it, and they stopped a massive attack.
Yes. And this wasn't just, intelligence that it might happen, or they did a preemptive to make sure it didn't. Literally, the clock was ticking.
Yeah.
The launch pads were set
to
trigger. I think it was something like 3 a.m. local time.
Yeah.
The time was set, and they managed to prevent it. I mean, I know that Israel was still under very heavy fire, and I think, was there one casualty?
Yeah, there's one Israeli Navy officer who was killed, a soldier, and he was on a boat in the Mediterranean, and it was actually shrapnel from an Iron Dome rocket that killed him. So, obviously, as Israel is under attack from these rockets, they fire counter rockets to shoot them out of the sky. And, these things, when they explode, there is still debris, there is still shrapnel. And unfortunately, he was hit by some of the shrapnel and died. So,
It's very sad. But I think we should be thankful that there were not more casualties. I mean, the difference between the drones and the rockets is that the rockets were fired with northern Israel, and actually the drones were able to reach central Israel, where the rockets could not reach, and those were taken out. Yeah. And so a real achievement by the IDF. Obviously, we know that this could happen again. We understand the larger context and the risks, but this was supposed to be the big attack by Hezbollah.
Yes.
And they were thwarted. And one interesting, here's a factoid. 90% of the rockets fired by Hezbollah were in civilian areas.
Yeah. That's the thing.
The same tactic as Hamas.
Exactly. And why? Because they are controlled by Iran.
Yeah.
Iran, pulls the strings for Hezbollah and Hamas. Both of them use the same terror tactics trying to destroy Israel and attack civilians. And one thing that is being noted is that actually, this could have been the brink of war if Israel hadn't done what it
Yes.
did. Because if they were allowed to happen, I mean, it could have been thousands of rockets, not just 230.
Yeah.
It could have been many more drones.
Yeah. Well,
and actually,
Hezbollah actually have 200,000 rockets pointing towards Israel.
Yeah.
And now, of course, they might not use them all in one go, but 200,000
Yeah.
funded by the Iranian regime.
Exactly. And Hezbollah have said in the past, Nasrallah, who's the leader of Hezbollah, he said everything we eat, everything we drink, every rocket we fire is paid for by the Iranian regime. So we know, they say it with their own lips that Iran funds them. I just want to point out something, though, because some people may be thinking, oh, is this the big Iranian attack? No, this was the big Hezbollah attack. And the reason for this is because back at the very end, the last day of July, the IDF took out I think he was second in command of Hezbollah, but he was at least believed to be a key military advisor to Hassan Nasrallah, and his name was Fuad Shakur.
Who's also in a tunnel, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Well, he wasn't. Nasrallah was in a tunnel. Yes, sorry.
Yes,
he was.
yes, sorry.
Yeah. Fuad Shakur actually, he was actually killed in a building.
Yes.
Because he surfaced from these tunnels.
Yes.
And the IDF tricked him into believing there was a phone call. So he was apparently he was on the second floor. Someone said to him, "Oh, you've got a phone call, but it's up on the 8th floor." So he went upstairs to take the phone call, and Israel took him out
really
at the top of the building. So there would have been a lot more civilian casualties if they weren't able to convince him, because he had surfaced into a building.
Yeah.
They either had the choice of taking him out inside the building and taking the whole building out, or trying to lure him up to the top of the building and take him out a bit more carefully, which they did. Unfortunately, there were a few casualties. I think two other people died.
Right.
I'm not 100% sure, but yes, that's what they did. They lured him up to the top of the building to take him out. But this actually happened a couple of days before Israel took out Ismail Haniyeh, the leader of Hamas, inside of Iran. So Haniyeh, the multi-billion-dollar leader of Hamas, the political bureau chief, he was taken out inside Iran in probably one of the most secure places in Iran. It's the IRGC secure unit in Tehran, in the capital of Iran. So Hezbollah's response was actually to the killing of Shakur, which was overshadowed by the killing of Haniyeh. So just to kind of clarify there, Hezbollah was responding to Israel's attack in Lebanon on Shakur. Iran is still going to be responding at some point to Israel's attack on Haniyeh in Tehran. So I just want to sort of clarify that for people, that there is like two sets of attack that were going on. And actually, because this was such a massive failure for Hezbollah, this was meant to be a big attack where Hezbollah was showing their might to Israel, and Israel snuffed it out before it even began.
Wow.
And so I think it's this sort of thing where I'm not sure if Hezbollah will now go, actually, we need to do a second attack to sort of prove ourselves, or if they're just going to lick their wounds and sort of think, yeah, we got them, and try and show to their people that they did a big attack. Because still, obviously, 230 rockets and 20 plus drones is still a big attack.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're going to do on that, but I just want people to be aware that Israel is still under threat from Iran.
Yeah.
It's still under threat from Hezbollah, obviously.
Yes.
But this was a military achievement from Israel.
Yeah.
Another thing to point out as well is just the fact that there is this sort of waiting game that's going on, and the leader of Iran, Khamenei, he's actually come out and said that waiting is part of the punishment. And so this is the thing, like this.
Right. So they're acknowledging there's a wait.
Yes. And there's a reason for it. Why? Because they want the people of Israel to live in terror and fear. It's kind of what we were talking about earlier. And it is this sort of psychological warfare, psychological trauma. Iran is basically saying, we haven't done our attack yet. Even when Hezbollah's doing this big attack, Iran hasn't done it yet. So Israel's constantly on guard from threats from all angles, and we have to keep praying about that. Because, this is a miracle. Praise the Lord. Israel and the IDF and their intelligence were able to thwart this attack from Hezbollah, but they still have to be very acutely aware that Hezbollah, first of all, has lots more rockets and lots more capabilities.
Yes.
But Iran is even bigger and even stronger.
Absolutely.
And, as Israel's dealt with Hamas, which was the little dog, the little enemy, Hezbollah's the bigger enemy, Iran is the even bigger enemy there. So it's sort of ramping
Yes.
up in sort of threats to
And
Israel.
also, I read the other day that actually Iran might not be waiting or are waiting, but they're not necessarily concerned about the outcome of the ceasefire with Hamas.
Yeah.
Whereas I think I'd wondered, are they waiting? Do they not want to jeopardize the talks by taking some action against Israel? But actually, irrespective of that, Iran could unilaterally still attack, regardless of that outcome. Whereas
Exactly.
I think some in the West are thinking that actually by creating a ceasefire, they might be able to hold back Iran's intentions. But actually, Iran's ambitions are very much separate to that.
Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of what you said before about Yahya Sinwar using his minions as pawns. Well, Hamas is a pawn of Iran. Iran doesn't Hamas is heavily not defeated, but it's heavily hurt right now. They've lost, I can't remember what the number is exactly, but around 15,000 combatants of Hamas have been killed in Gaza. Like you said, in Rafah, they've been defeated near enough.
Yes.
They don't have operational abilities in their capital, in their the last bastion of sort of resistance they had there. So for what Tehran is looking at, and by the way, Iran, the Iranians, the Persian Empire, from the Bible, they invented chess. They are not dumb people. They know what they're doing. They're playing this game. They've got their pawns and their pieces. We have to give them credit. And I don't think Israel is underestimating them in any way, shape or form. And the thing is, it might even help them to keep Gaza as a problem for Israel as long as possible. So there could be a case where, look, Israel is just about to make a deal, and then Iran decides to attack at that moment. Iran could be waiting for, Iran's waiting for the right moment to attack. And going back to looking at Hezbollah and how they responded, it was the 31st of July when Israel took out Shakur, and it's only this week when they responded.
Yes.
It's the same thing. Like, Iran is playing the long game.
Yeah.
They want to keep Israel under trauma. They want to terrorize as long as possible. And Hezbollah is part of that as well. So, yeah,
absolutely. Well, if we can just comfort ourselves then with a scripture on that note about Israel's protection, Psalm 121 says, I will lift up my eyes to the hills, from whence comes my help. My help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. He will not allow your foot to be moved. He who keeps you will not slumber. Behold, he who keeps Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is your keeper. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun shall not smite you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord shall preserve you from all evil. He shall preserve your soul. The Lord shall preserve your going out and your coming in from this time forth and even forevermore.
Amen.
So, the Lord is watching. The Lord is watching over Israel. The Lord is watching the enemies of Israel and what they are doing to his chosen people, his inheritance. This is a promise for Israel that the Lord is not asleep. He's well aware, he's awake, and also a promise to us, because he who keeps you will not slumber. Behold, he who keeps Israel neither slumbers or sleeps. So it's a promise to Israel, and also because he's faithful to Israel, he's also faithful to us. If he's not faithful to Israel, it undermines his promises to us. But both are upheld by him and his word. He preserves our soul. He will preserve us from all evil. That's a wonderful promise. And so, let's keep our eyes focus on the hills.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's focus. Someone said that this psalm, when David was penning it, the eyes to the hills, he was considering Zion. And so, our hope really does not come in political situations or even military, though we are believing that the Lord is with Israel's military, of course. But actually our hope comes from God and his sovereignty and his promises.
Definitely.
So, Alex, shall we read some comments?
Yep.
Because in the last podcast, we promised listeners that we were going to read some of the comments that are posted on the YouTube platform for this podcast. So we're going to do that. And the topic in the last podcast was about the Scottish Member of Parliament, John Mason, a Christian politician in Scottish Parliament who basically tweeted that Israel is not committing genocide, and as a result of that got suspended by his party, vilified by his party, told you to, he should basically be abandoned, is what one politician said in response, and that he was completely inaccurate and his post was offensive, etc. And so we discussed that in the last podcast. And so some of the comments, we're going to read a comment here from Devotional Treasures. In this news, the SNP has stepped into being the avowed enemies of Israel, Almighty God, and true believers within Scotland. Please pray for revival in our nation. Another comment said, it is disgraceful that a politician can be suspended simply for telling the truth and giving his opinion, especially when it's true. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion. You asked for views on the UN. Yes, we did. I don't trust it and certainly don't regard it as a highly regarded impartial supreme arbitrator of the world's problems, not unlike Archbishop Welby. It has shown a massive anti-Israel bias through multiple unmerited anti-Israel resolutions. UNRWA is deeply complicit in anti-Israel indoctrination of children and in Hamas activities.
Yep.
Another comment, how can Iran and Israel sit at the same table as the UN? Is there any other country who has vowed to annihilate another member country? We need pressure on Iran to renounce this vicious objective. Agreed.
Yep.
With those comments. Israel should sue all those newspaper groups who have declared the false genocide lie.
Yeah, that's we agree with that as well. Shouldn't be spreading misinformation as we've been told by the government. Yeah.
No. This is interesting comment. Obviously, SNP values are Hamas values, terrorist values, evil values. Scotland deserves better than this nonsense. Gaza is not in Scotland.
Right. That's obviously quite a loaded comment there. And I would say the thing is, when SNP is trying to say, for example, that response is actually probably in response to when SNP said it's not our values to basically say that Israel's not.
But that's what genocide. They said. SNP said it.
Yeah. So if that's the case, what are their values? Well, maybe this person's right. Maybe they are on the side of Hamas. I think.
Well, if they are saying that it's offensive to say that Hamas is not committing genocide,
that Israel's not committing genocide.
Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. Well, actually, there's a suggestion for another topic. But yes, that Israel is not committing genocide. If that's offensive,
and if it's not in
they
their
have
values,
drawn a line.
Yeah. Well, they've put themselves on the side of the terrorists, of Hamas, of people who are not telling the truth. Yeah. It's a bizarre situation, actually, the whole SNP situation, because a politician being suspended for speaking the truth, it's like, I don't know, it just doesn't make sense anyway.
No, they have very much drawn a line. So actually, we if we are going to vilify Israel, then actually we are taking sides. So Scotland does deserve better. I agree with that.
Yep, definitely.
And I also agree that Gaza is not in Scotland. Hamas committed genocide on the 7th of October because they directed their atrocities on the innocent Jewish people, not against the state of Israel. That's an interesting comment.
Interesting. Yeah, it's partly correct. I mean, I agree with that. I think Hamas have said they want to kill all Jews globally, not just Jews in Israel, and I think
which is an anti-Semitic motive.
Yes, and it's also a genocidal motive.
Yes,
but even if they just wanted to wipe Israel off the face of the earth, that is also a genocidal motive.
Yes,
because
by definition.
Yeah, by definition, nationality is a protected class. So therefore, everyone calling for from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, calling for the eradication, the annihilation of Israel, which is what Tehran, previous comments said about Iran wants to do that, wipe out another country. That is genocidal.
Yes.
So talk about genocide. I mean, Israel's there providing vaccines to the Palestinians, trying to save Palestinian lives. and all the enemies of Israel are the genocidal ones.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. There's another comment here, a bunch of crazes, which I don't think is referring to you and me.
Let's hope not.
That would be a pair of crazes.
Yeah.
I think it's referring to the S&P or the UN, or maybe both.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's referring to us. We enjoy reading these comments. And another one, just to close here, CUFI uncovers the truth of the world's lies against it. Well, thank you.
Yep.
We do appreciate your encouragement,
Yep.
and it is a real blessing to read these comments, to read your thoughts, and to know that, you know, you're standing with us here at CUFI. You know, CUFI, we are wanting to share the truth, to confront the lies, to speak the truth in this nation for Israel, and to also encourage Christians, because we have a role as Christians to stand with what the Bible says about Israel, loving Israel, standing with Israel, blessing Israel. By standing with Israel, we are, I believe, blessing Israel as well, because, you know, this is a war of information, a war which has been leveled against Israel, which is actually, you've raised it, it is satanic, it is demonic, it is a battle for truth. And as part of Christians, we are in a battle for truth in so many ways.
And our war isn't, we're not physically fighting. We're not. We're wrestling not with flesh and blood, but with principalities and powers. That's what what our role is in that, isn't it?
Yeah. So right now here in the UK, CUFI is making a stand, and it's because of us, it's through the generosity of our supporters that we are able to do this. So thank you very much. And if you would like to support CUFI through a donation, then please visit our website at www.cufi.org.uk/donate, where there's an opportunity to give a one-off gift or to become a partner with CUFI. Of course, there are other ways to support as well. Prayer being a major one. We need your prayers. Our nation needs prayer. Israel needs prayer. And, you know, like watchmen on the walls, we as Christians are called to be watchmen, to pray, to watch and to pray on Israel's behalf. And Alex, you're holding the calendar.
Yep.
We've had an advert already, but here's another reminder of the calendar that we have available on our online store, exclusive to CUFI UK, with lots of beautiful images of Israel, scriptures which speak about the beauty of Zion, calendar dates, including UK, Israel, Christian and Jewish dates, as well as weekly Torah readings. This is a beautiful gift, something that we provide along with another gift package as well, with the mug, the company mug. There we go, there's the mug.
Not sure you can see it too well. But
and look, all products, including the calendar and the mug and everything else on CUFI UK store, helps the work of CUFI. All proceeds go towards CUFI UK. And so if you would like to treat yourself to one of these gifts as a prompt to continue to pray for Israel and the Jewish people daily throughout the year, or to buy as a gift for someone you know loves Israel, then please visit our store, which is, the website is store.cufi.org.uk.
Yep. I think it's also worth pointing out as well, we're talking about the information war and things like that, and spiritual, but also we are blessing Israel physically as well. So recently we've provided a medical vehicle to Israel to help with emergency services, providing their work. And also CUFI has provided aid and support to every single kibbutz that has been affected by the 7th of October attacks. Yeah. So it is your donations that are helping to, bless Israel physically, as well as to bless Israel spiritually, and to bless Britain spiritually as well, because we are, fighting against the darkness, shining the light of truth in this dark world, in this dark time for our nation. As, unfortunately, our nation is turning away from God. And so we're trying to turn them back to God and to have our nation stand with Israel. So thank you so much for all your support, because all of the work we do is only made possible through donations. So Thank you for standing with CUFI.
That's right. And if you enjoyed this podcast, then we invite you to please like, share, comment. We're going to read some more comments in the next podcast. Also, please subscribe if you're not already subscribed, and to share this with your friends as well. But now I think we've come to the end.
Yep.
We're going to sign off. Alex is going to make some more anonymous phone calls to Hezbollah tower blocks. And until next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you. And we look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye.